One of the things that I'm really interested in is just like, is polarization itself actually the problem? Because I know your work it focuses heavy on polarization and the outrage that we are experiencing in society and a lot of times through media. And do you think that polarization is the issue in itself? Because it just seems to be some situations where polarization is actually justified. I mean, of course, this is why we have like laws. We're going to be polarized on some things, and there's some underlying disagreement that's going to be fundamental. So, how do we distinguish between healthy polarization and unhealthy polarization, and what standard do we use for that distinction?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm really glad you brought that up because, yeah, it's not unusual for well, we talk about in this space, social scientists talk about a few different sort of versions of polarization, right? And one of those is sort of issue polarization, right, where either parties or other factions differ on the issues. Like one side wants immigration to be this way, other side wants immigration to be that way, or on gun control or something else. And yes, that's pretty natural that you're going to have polarization in that. Now that has increased as well, and sometimes that creates some challenges. But the parties did begin separating. They almost did this intentionally, because in the early, like back in the '60s, it was like the electorate was saying, "I can't tell you apart," right? Because back then there was a lot more conservatives in the Democratic Party. There was a lot more liberals in the Republican Party, and so they just started to separate more. So that's the issue polarization side of it. And yeah, I think that does have, like you say, you're going to have issues. We're going to have issue polarization. That's not that bad in itself, and it's not that unusual. There's another type of polarization called affective polarization, or you might call it toxic polarization. And that's this animosity that we have, that has gone, some people talk about it as political sectarianism, where it's like a religion now, where we really begin to dislike the other side. And so it goes beyond we think they have bad ideas to we think they're bad people with bad intent, and to the point where we even think they're like evil and immoral, and we've got the moral high ground. They're morally wrong. We're morally good. That kind of thing can be a little more toxic and make it harder to do a lot. And it also opens up the door, which is why one reason why there's a lot of people in this kind of peace building, what would call peace building part of this, is that they see peace building as such an important thing, because that affective polarization, that animosity side of it, is how you start to become more open to anti-democratic things. You start to be open to your side cheating more. You start to be open to even violence, right? That starts to become a little bit more like, if they're really that bad, why shouldn't we be a little violent, right? That's kind of
Exactly.
where this thinking goes. And so that's where, it's kind of a problem. But you're absolutely right too, that, yeah, there's things we should be outraged about. Like, I'm not even saying we shouldn't be outraged, right? There's some things maybe we should be more outraged about, right? But the reason why I call the podcast Outrage Overload is because, when we're just inundated with this stuff and we're outraged about everything, then we can't be outraged about anything. You know what I mean? We're just mad all the time. We're dialed up to 11. And, outrage has a purpose for humans and for our psychology and our society, I should say. Is kind of a something that people think they've sort of evolved as a way to sort of constrain people and enforce norms, right? So we're all together and we see this thing happen. We don't like this thing. We all kind of get together and we stop the thing. I mean, you could think of like Aaron Brockovich and, chemical spills and things like that as things we're outraged about this. We're going to do something about it. But that whole function goes away when you're just sort of dialed up to 11 all the time. There's no place to take it, and you can't separate out the things that I want to spend my time on. So some of it is kind of that. It's kind of picking your battles a little bit and not being just constantly outraged about everything.